Hi, this is Eric from Cafe Watercolor. Welcome to another painting demo sharing. Today I want to share this illustration painting from the movie Suzume and share a little bit of the story behind this painting. So Suzume is an anime movie that came out a couple weeks ago. I am an anime fan and so does my 14-year-old, so we decided to go watch this movie together. It was sort of a surprise because he didn't expect that I would take him to the movie. So my wife stayed at home and looked after the younger two kid while I took him to the movie. We had a wonderful time. This is an awesome movie. I really like it. And it's been a while since I watched a full-on 2D animation movie that is just breathtaking and mind-blowing. So the reference image is actually a movie still image. This chair is actually one of the characters. Now, why is this character a chair? I'm not going to reveal because that's going to be spoiler, even though this movie has came out quite a while ago. So anyways, the reason I do this painting, not just because I really like this movie, but also as a homage to this wonderful time I had with my kid. Now, even though this is a illustration style painting, the process is pretty much the same. I still start off with a line drawing. And this is a chair, so even though it is a character, it's still just a chair. So I sort of treat it as a still life. So things like structure and perspective are still pretty important. The scene is pretty small though. It's just a corner of a room and the character and the camera is looking down on this chair because this chair is really small. So I eyeball most of the perspective in this painting since we don't really see the vanishing point for all the objects in the room. All that being said, it shouldn't be that difficult because the wooden tiles on the floor gives a very good guide for where the scenes are going. So I'm using a mechanical pencil right now, trying to make the drawing a little bit cleaner and correct them as I go. Once I start to paint, it's not a good idea to correct any more drawing at that point, so correct your drawing while you still can. So I'm not sure if I shared this before, but during my college year, I went to an art school. My major was illustration because I thought that illustration is all about drawing things like these. Drawing things about video games and animation, comics, and so on. And from my last video, I did share that I like to play video games since I was little, and I still do now. So I like anime, I like manga, comics when I am little as well. So I remember during elementary school or even all the way up to high school, I would not pay attention in class and just doodle, drawing manga characters and stuff when the teacher is not paying attention to me. My grade definitely suffered because of that. And school just wasn't really that interesting to me when I was little. Fortunately, I was able to find a path that worked for me, and now I have a stable job and I'm actually get to do this video, painting watercolor, painting things that I like. So back to the painting a little bit. I start off with the color of the light because like I mentioned before, the process is pretty much the same as any other watercolor painting that I did. Start with the light value, the color of the light, then paint the middle and the dark value. Now because I know that the light value on the chair is actually not that white, so I did go ahead and mix a little bit thicker yellow mixture to paint on it. So this is the flooring. So I try to give it just a little bit more color in the first wash. And now I'm doing some wet on to wet on the floor just to give it a little bit of different colors and texture variations. Now all three of my kids, they are creative in different ways. They all like to draw though, so they might got this from me, but yet at the same time, most of the kids like to do art, I think, because it's fun. My 14-year-old like to draw as well. He liked to draw comic and video game characters as well. So whenever I see him do those, do those type of drawings, it reminded me of myself when I was little, when I was his age. The difference is though, he has very good grade, so I cannot say the same for myself. So I believe he got that from my wife, which is good. My wife has always been a really good student. But because of that, I can relate to my kids sometime. Being somebody who is a little bit more interested in art and interested in stuff that is not so mainstream, even though I think anime has become a lot more popular in the US, it's still not a very mainstream culture compared to places like Asia. So you can get a little bit lonely at times. So I want to be there with him and I share the same interests with him so he doesn't feel so lonely. He do have some good friends who share the same interest, but I think having a family member who can understand him always help. Okay, back to the painting, and I apologize because there is a little bit of the painting process I forgot to record, so you see the fade in of the cast shadow. But what I did pretty much is just to paint the middle value for the cast shadow casted by the chair. And now I'm just going ahead and paint the dark value on the chair. There are some darker cast shadow and the occluded shadow that are much darker, and also some of the textures on the chair. That's the way I like to approach still life and portrait sometime, just to paint the main focus first and then paint the complete value range and paint the background later afterwards, so I have a reference how dark and the color that I should use for the rest of the painting. I do that because I am not a very patient person and I usually don't like to spend too long on a single painting. So I will try to spend most of my attention and my energy in the focus of the painting rather than paying a single wash to the whole painting one after another, as opposed to a scenery painting where I pretty much do the whole picture at the same time. And you might also notice I changed something a little bit. The key that's underneath the chair, I move it out just a little bit, so part of the key is actually in the light and part of it is in the shadow. I just like to do that so that make it look a little bit more interesting. And I'm darkening the legs on the chair. I feel they're a little bit too light. Again, this tends to happen when the watercolor is starting to dry out. The color turns lighter. And now I pre-wet the floor, because if you look at the image, you do see some reflections on the floor. The wooden floor could be a little bit shiny, that's why you see the reflection, and it is anime, so they try to exaggerate some of the surface textures. But I do like it, so I decided to do a soft reflection of the chair. That's why I pre-wetted the surface and do wet onto wet so I can have some soft reflection on the floor. So when painting a picture, using different technique to paint out different visual elements is pretty important. If you know how to paint different edges, different shapes, but you don't know where to use them, then that's not going to be effective. It's kind of like you know a lot of different vocabularies, but you don't know how to put them in a sentence. Then those vocabularies are not going to be so useful. And here is something I do a little bit different from the original image. I added a cast shadow across the back of the chair, just so that it feels a little bit more interesting and also feels a little bit more dimensional, because cast shadow is always a good way to show off the form of an object. And that can also connect to the background in terms of value. And that's not to say that I don't like the original image. I just try to recompose it a little bit so that it works better for my painting. So the main subject, which is the chair, is pretty much done. I started to paint the background. Now the background has a lot of area to cover, so I use a bigger brush and make sure I have quite a bit more mixtures so I can give it a good coverage. What I find challenging in watercolor is things like these when I try to paint a large area and I try to keep it nice and clean and consistent, and especially if the value is a little bit darker, I need to mix a lot more paint. And especially because watercolor dry lighter, it is a little bit difficult to do that. So now I paint over the floor as well. Give it some glaze so some of the areas can be a little bit darker. The backgrounds are mostly very simple. We only see part of a furniture, mostly the leg, and here is the base of a lamp, I think. So as long as we just keep it clean and keep the value consistent, I think we'll be good. Like I mentioned before, I don't do fan art often because it's usually somebody else's IP and there's not much I can do with the painting when I'm done other than just share it on the internet. But sometimes I do fan art because it has special meaning to me. So in this case, this reminds me of a good time I had with my son, which is always a good reason to paint. I always believe that a artwork and painting can be a good way to capture memories. And sometimes it doesn't have to be a specific location or a specific someone's portrait. It can be a fan art like these, but it has a special meaning for me. So I really enjoy painting this picture. And it feels like some part of my artistic journey come full circle to use a medium that I love to paint a subject that I love when I was little. It kind of gets me feel like I'm a kid again in some way, which is very interesting feeling. Landscapes are great, portraits are great, and I'm not going to stop painting those wonderful subjects, but sometimes letting my nerdy self coming out a little bit and paint the subjects that I'm interested when I was younger is definitely a very nice change of pace as well, and I really enjoyed it. And hopefully you enjoy this little part of me as well. So even though this might not be a subject that you're interested in, but thank you for listening and thank you for watching to get to know a little bit more about me and my life in general. Here is the finished painting. I really love how it turns out. It feels like a children's book illustration, and watercolor always gives that soft, gentle vibe that I really love. I know you might be expecting a little bit more painting technique, some tips and tricks, videos. Those are in the work as well. Might not be as many as before, but I will still put them out. In the meanwhile, hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are. Stay safe and take care. I'm Eric from Cafe Watercolor. See you later.